Since June the 5th, 1978, Legal Times has been the primary source for news about law and lobbying in the nation's capital. Nearly every major legal event of the past 30 years has been chronicled in its pages. From the Carter administration's regulatory policies to George W. Bush and the War on Terror. Over the course of those years, Legal Times has become a Monday morning habit for thousands of Washington lawyers. During its early years, the newspaper focused heavily on regulation, providing insight into burgeoning environmental standards and employment law. Now, its coverage ranges from news in the federal and local courts to in-depth coverage of the business of law and lobbying to legal developments on the Hill and in federal agencies. As the newspaper's scope has expanded, so too has the Washington legal community. When it started, there were far fewer lawyers plying their trade in the district. Even by 1986, 8 years after the paper started, the biggest law office in the region, Covington and Burling, had just 225 lawyers. Times have most definitely changed. Today, the biggest office, Wilmer Cutler Pickering Hale and Dorr, employs more than 500 lawyers. Earnings have skyrocketed too. In 1986, the first year Legal Times began tracking annual financial data for firms in the district. The top Washington law office earned $56 million. Last year's #1 firm, Hogan & Hartson, earned $435 million from its office in Washington. That was more than the combined earnings of all the firms on the first Legal Times revenue list. In fact, last year, for the first time, the 20 highest-grossing law firms in the district collectively earned $5 billion. Profits, too, have increased dramatically. For good or ill, gone are the days when $350,000 was the benchmark for profits per partner. Today, the standard for the biggest firms in D.C. is $1 million or more. But money isn't the only measure of success. Over the last 30 years, Washington's legal community has led the nation in pro bono service. And it has been the groundbreaking center of developments in the law, from the Supreme Court to the Federal Circuit to government agencies and academia. In Legal Times pages, reporters have profiled the leading legal authorities from 5 administrations. They've discovered legal talent early in their careers. The first time Barack Obama appeared in its pages was when he was still at Harvard Law. Chief Justice John Roberts was still a Reagan administration official when he got his first mention in the paper. Meanwhile, Legal Times opinion pages have been an outlet for some of the top political and legal authorities of the day. From Orrin Hatch to Joe Biden, Legal Times has become a home to provocative bipartisan commentary. The Supreme Court holds a special place in the newspaper's coverage. 17 justices, including 3 chief justices, have been on the court in the last 3 decades. Legal Times has covered every one of them and has chronicled landmark opinions from Bake to D.C. versus Heller. It's also been one of the most consistent voices on the life of the court, starting with the aftermath of Bob Woodward's book, The Brethren, in 1979, through the confirmations of Chief Justices Rehnquist and Roberts, to the divisive fights over Clarence Thomas and Harriet Miers. For the last decade, Legal Times has been the home of Tony Morrow, one of the most senior and respected Supreme Court correspondents in the country. He's just one of the journalists, designers, salespeople, and business leaders to have their careers nurtured at the publication. From the New York Times to Newsweek, chances are there's someone in a top editorial or business position who first made their mark at Legal Times. When Legal Times first began, providing a weekly print newspaper was enough. But as times have changed and the number of ways to get information has multiplied, the paper has adapted. Its award-winning website, LegalTimes.com, has been online for a decade. And last year, it started the blog of Legal Times, a popular newswire that attracts tens of thousands of readers each month. Even with the proliferation of new technologies, the mission hasn't changed. Legal Times aims to continue for 30 more years as the primary source for news about the D.C. legal and lobbying community. The headlines in this vibrant, extraordinary legal community never stop, and Legal Times will be there to cover them.